Oh boy, where do I even begin with this topic? There is a lot of negativity around Tears of the Kingdom and Zelda as a whole lately, so I know I have to be gentle with this topic. So let me express at the beginning of this video that I am one of the few people that actually likes Tears of the Kingdom, and even more than Breath of the Wild. I was planning on releasing a video about Breath of the Wild versus Tears of the Kingdom, where I go in depth about the differences and improvements that I personally enjoyed very much. Sadly, that video has not come out yet and is in limbo for the time being. That means I can't really prove to you that I am not a hater. So just take my word for it. With all that being said, I am still one of those people that is not a huge fan of the Wild era in general. Okay, now I ruined all the goodwill I had at the intro, but I really feel like these games are missing some of the most important aspects that made me fall in love with the franchise in the first place. And finally, after all this time, I pinpointed my thoughts on one missing ingredient in these games. One main component that is so important in fact that it was there since the beginning, since Zelda 1 on the NES in 1986 and lasted until Skyward Sword in 2011. It is completely missing in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and I think a lot of people can't really single out what this ingredient might be. It's a pet peeve I have every time I hear people compare Breath of the Wild to Zelda 1. Saying Breath of the Wild is closer to Zelda 1 than Ocarina of Time is to Zelda 1 is completely disingenuous and only focuses on one single aspect Zelda 1 had: the not so really open world. Actually, Zelda 1 and Breath of the Wild are less alike than any other Zelda game is to Zelda 1. Before I get too ahead of myself, I need to step back a bit and talk about three components that all have to do with this missing ingredient. They all are connected with the reason I feel like something is missing in the new era. So trust the process, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and let's jump straight into the first missing component. Puzzle box dungeons. Okay, maybe this one was predictable. Most of the Zelda fanbase agrees that even with the new corrections Tears of the Kingdom did with the Divine Beasts by adding themes and memorable bosses back, they still lack something. Well, it's not really that hard to figure out what it is if we compare them. Wild era dungeons all have a completely different structure. They all put 4 to 5 switches in a closed area and ask you to activate them separately. They all have 1 to 2 puzzles that are required to solve before reaching the switch and are completely disconnected from each other. This disconnect not only simplifies each separate puzzle, they also remove the multi-layered puzzle box aspects that every other Zelda game had. Let's look at Var Meadow for example. To reach this terminal, you destroy the malice and then tilt the beast to jump onto this terminal. It's done. The terminal is activated and has no further impact on upcoming puzzles. You could have easily done this as the last puzzle if you wanted to. Now the next puzzle next door actually has some substance to it instead of being a puzzle for 3-year-olds, and we need to use the tilt and the bombs to open the gate with this metal ball. Once again, it is done. As soon as we got here, we just did the puzzle and moved on. This is how every Divine Beast and dungeon in Tears of the Kingdom is designed. I don't even think the quality of the puzzles is that bad, well, except that first one. There are a lot of easy puzzles in these dungeons, and you know what? There are even a lot of these meaningless puzzles in older Zelda games. Do you know what makes the difference though? The old Zelda dungeons have all interconnected puzzles. In the old style format, doing this meaningless puzzle is just a step in a bigger process. Puzzles can act as roadblocks, but also as switches that change the state of something in another room. To solve the puzzle is to solve the entire dungeon. By unlocking one puzzle, you get the tools to go back and do another puzzle. You then get a key that lets you into a room, and this room switches the state of the water level or something similar that lets you progress even further into the dungeon. I highly recommend watching this video by Game Maker's Toolkit that I will link in the description. It is a super good and well done analysis of this style of Zelda dungeon that has been the standard for the past years. Room keys, items and other puzzles were halting your progress until they were solved. Even if some of the old dungeons were super linear instead of trying to make you think around the corner, they all had interconnected puzzles that you needed to solve to progress. Progress. Progress as a player. Yes, this is my second component that has been absent in the Wild era and was present in the past. In Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you start the game in the tutorial area and can't leave without obtaining the 4 main abilities. Only after obtaining these you are free to leave the area. And after that point, progress is determined by a hidden level up system that just spawns tougher enemies and better weapons. Everything else is left up to exploration and finding new weapons that all do the same thing. The only new abilities you ever gain are the champion abilities that are mostly just for convenience. Fly a bit more, do a bit more damage, or stay easier alive. Link grows with your ability to play the game better, but is only artificially made stronger by getting better materials that do the same thing you were already able to do 10 hours into the game. And this gets especially stale if the game is as long as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are. In the older games, you constantly move forward by progressing the story and learning about new developments for characters and the world around them. By telling a story out of order, and in the past, both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom feel like the story has no impact on the current events. This already happened and has no ramification for what's gonna happen going forward. That way it doesn't feel like you are moving towards achieving anything. Helping the 4 areas around Hyrule doesn't progress the story or your character really. It feels like a side quest, and them being optional doesn't really make the situation better. In the old games that didn't even have that much story, the progression is mostly focused on Link getting stronger with each dungeon by collecting powerful new abilities. Items were a staple since the first Zelda. They not only help you in battles, they also help you to solve puzzles and explore the world, like the bow and arrows, boomerang, ladder and the raft. These are also paramount for completing the game. In Zelda 1, you can't actually beat level 6 without the ladder that you can only get in level 4. But to beat level 4, you actually need the raft from level 3. So the game expects you to do the dungeons and power yourself up to progress through the game. You know what else you can do with the raft once you obtained it? Explore more of the world that was kept closed until now. Yes, even with everyone comparing Zelda 1's world to Breath of the Wild, Zelda 1 is not actually an open world game. The third and most important component that my points were actually building up to, and I don't think many people are realizing is missing from this new Zelda games, something every Zelda game except the Wild era had even from the beginning. It's the missing Metroidvania element. What is this Metroidvania ingredient? Or should we call it Zeldavania, seeing how this came out first? Anyways, it's simple, and I have already mentioned it in both my dungeons and my progress talking points. There are things that are unobtainable and areas that are inaccessible until you progress in the game and earn a power-up that lets you go back and uncover the full game. This loop of discovery and gaining of new power-ups that prompt you to return to already visited areas is super rewarding and makes exploration even better. Funnily enough, something similar to this happened to me in Tears of the Kingdom. There's this cave underneath Cape Kales that has a gate. When I first arrived here, I tried everything, but I couldn't get the gate to open. You only learn how to open the way after discovering the pirate's manuscript and get a riddle that reads: a forgotten pirate cavern lurks at the foot of Cape Kales, overlooking the Necluda Sea. The short, shrill song of wind through the lips will open the way to my treasure. This was such a memorable moment to me because I was not able to enter the cave in the first place. All this still doesn't halt you to actually discover everything else that is around. It just makes exploration feel more rewarding by putting interesting stuff in the world that you have to come back to. I know a lot of Breath of the Wild fans are gonna jump at me and say the whole point of Breath of the Wild is the open world and that you can do everything you want and go everywhere you want. Let me turn this around for you then. Imagine if you play through Breath of the Wild as normal, like always. But after you beat the 4 divine beasts, the marker now says visit Lurelin village, and now that you freed all the divine beasts, they bestow to you a boat. And with this boat, you can sail past the invisible wall to uncover a brand new island that is the size of Hyrule again, or even a bit smaller, but with brand new biomes. You can't possibly tell me that this wouldn't have blown your mind away. And don't tell me this is impossible, because even if Breath of the Wild was the first one and it was already hard enough to make one overworld, Tears of the Kingdom could easily have done something similar to this, or it could have even kept the Sky Islands and the underground inaccessible for you until you beat one of the dungeons and learn a new skill that allows you to visit one of those areas. The order still could have been completely open, and it would be an amazing feeling to finally be able to reach new areas. Zelda 1 does not have an open world. You can't explore the world from the beginning. There are secrets in the world that you can unlock after getting more upgrades. You can't complete every dungeon in any order. Dungeons themselves are interconnected puzzles. It uses item progression to expand your abilities and the world. What are even the similarities to Breath of the Wild you can draw anymore? I really don't understand what people are saying when they say Breath of the Wild goes back to what Zelda 1 was trying to be. It couldn't be farther away. You know what other game shares all these similarities to Zelda 1? I don't know, Ocarina of Time? Or maybe other Zelda games maybe? Especially Ocarina of Time handles the overworld much more like Zelda 1 than Breath of the Wild. You can access most of the world, while some parts are locked behind item progression. The fire, forest, water and Gerudo dungeons can be completed in any order you want, and dungeons are interconnected puzzles instead of disconnected mobile game puzzle solutions. So what is the verdict? What am I trying to say here? Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are amazing open world games with a sandbox to explore. You are fully in the right to like the style more than the old Zelda style. Heck, we can even argue that this style is objectively way better than any other Zelda game combined. I couldn't disagree with you. It's all about preference at this point. But I'm tired of fearing that Breath of the Wild somehow returned to the roots when it actually went further away than anything before it. Let's face it, there are now 3 Zelda pillars: the 2D entries, the traditional 3D entries, and the sandbox entries. It is very possible that we might not get a traditional 3D entry in the next 20 years because the sandbox is too popular right now. But there's also hope that they can find a middle ground for both. I do think sacrifices for both formulas need to be made for this to be possible. The sandbox needs to lose some of its freedom, and the traditional formula needs to get less linear with the story and the item progression. I don't know how difficult this will be, or if Nintendo even considers it at all, but my dream Zelda would be an open world game with great traversal and shrines for the sandbox fans, but have linear sections for story progression, inaccessible areas until later power-ups, and good designed interconnected dungeons. Make it happen, Nintendo. So if you hate me, agree with me, or are still neutral, still leave a like and subscribe for more Zelda content. And I hope to see you soon again.